ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरौ श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमां विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिने नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to the morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. So we are today going to read from the third canto, chapter 4, verse number 29. So let me share my screen. We will read the verse and the meanings, synonyms and translation and the purport. Share screen. Shri Shuka Uvacha Brahma Shapadeshena Kale Namogha Vanchitaha Samritya Swakulam Svitam Tyaksham Deham Achintayat. Once again. Shri Shuka Uvacha Brahma Shapadeshena Kale Namogha Vanchitaha Samritya Swakulam Svitam Tyakshan Deham Achintayat. Synonyms or the word-to-word meanings. Sri Shukadev, Sri Shuka Vacha, Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, Brahma Shapa, cursing by the Brahmanas, Apadeshena, on the plea by such a show, Kalena, by the eternal time, Amogha, unfailing, Vanchita, one who so desires, Samritya, closing, Swakulam, own family, Svitam, excessively numerous, Tyakshan, after giving up, Deham, the universal form, Achintayat, thought to himself. Translation. Shukadev Goswami replied, My dear king, the cursing of the Brahmanas was only a plea, but the actual fact was the supreme desire of the Lord. He wanted to disappear from the face of the earth after dispatching his excessively numerous family members. He thought to himself as follows. Purport by His Divine Grace, His Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, the word Tyakshan is very significant in relation to Lord Sri Krishna's leaving his body. Since he is the eternal form of existence, knowledge, and bliss, his body and his self are identical. Therefore, how is it possible that he would leave his body and then disappear from the vision of this world? There is a great controversy among the non-devotees or Mayavadis about the mysterious disappearance of the Lord, and the doubts of those men with a poor fund of knowledge have been very elaborately cleared by Srila Jiva Goswami in his Krishna Sandarbha. According to Brahma Samhita, the Lord has many forms. It is stated herein that the Lord has innumerable forms, and when he appears within the vision of the living entities, as Lord Krishna actually appeared, all such forms amalgamate with him. Besides all these infallible forms, he has his universal form as manifested before Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Here in this verse, the word Svitam is also used, which indicates that he left his gigantic universal form called the Virat Rupa, not his primeval eternal form, because there is hardly any possibility of his changing his form of Satchit Ananda. This simple understanding is at once realized by the devotees of the Lord, but those who are non-devotees who perform hardly any devotional service to the Lord either do not understand this simple fact or purposely raise a controversy to defeat the eternity of the transcendental body of the Lord. This is due to the defect called the cheating propensity of the imperfect living entities. By practical experience also, it is seen up to the present day that the Lord's transcendental form is worshipped by devotees in different temples, and all the devotees of the Lord factually realize that the form of the deity in the temple is non-different from the form of the Lord. This inconceivable performance of the internal potency of the Lord is described in Bhagavad Gita 7.25. Naham prakasha sarvasya yoga maya samavritah. The Lord reserves the right of not being exposed to everyone. In the Padma Purana, it is said, Atah Shri Krishna Namadi na bhaved grahyam indriyai. The name and the form of the Lord cannot be perceived by the material senses. But when he appears within the vision of the mundane people, he assumes the form of the Virat Rupa. This is an additional material exhibition of form and is supported by the logic of a subject and its adjectives. In grammar, when an adjective is added away from the subject it modifies does not change. Similarly, when the Lord quits his Virat Rupa, his eternal form does not change, although there is no material difference between himself and any one of his innumerable forms. In the 5th canto, it will be seen how the Lord is worshipped in different planets in his different forms, even now, and how he is worshipped in different temples of this earth also. Srila Jiva Goswami and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur have elaborately explained this incident of the Lord's disappearance in their commentaries, quoting various authentic versions of Vedic literatures. We purposely do not include them all here to avoid an increase in the volume of this book. The entire matter is explained in Bhagavad Gita as quoted above. The Lord reserves the right of not being exposed to everyone. He always keeps himself out of the vision of the non-devotees who are devoid of love and devotion. And thus he puts them still further away from the Lord. The Lord appeared on the invitation of Brahma, who prayed before the Shirodaka Sai Vishnu, and therefore, when the Lord appeared, all the forms of Vishnu amalgamated with him, and when the mission was fulfilled, all of them disintegrated from him in the usual course. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tatadi Swapadantikam. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami, Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? So again, we are reading from the third canto, verse number 4 and text number 29. Here we see that Sukadev Goswami, on being inquired, he is saying that the Lord or Krishna disappeared, or he left this world, and externally it seemed like he left because of the cursing of the Brahmanas, but it was only a plea. The actual fact was that it was the supreme desire of the Lord. He wanted to disappear from the face of the earth. After dispatching his excessively numerous family members, he thought to himself as follows. So that's the verse. And like the title says, how to understand. And Prabhupada in the purport also mentioned that there is a great controversy among the non-devotees. And there are so many theories. Some say that Lord Krishna, when he comes, he takes the form of Maya. He takes the help of Maya. Krishna has a material body, and he also perfects himself when he comes here, and then he leaves. These are some of the theories presented by the non-devotees. But here in this verse, Prabhupada very clearly mentions, and backed by our acharyas, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Thakur Jiva Goswami, etc., who have very clearly mentioned that the Lord is independent. He is beyond the control of this material world, and he comes and goes according to his own will. That is, in very simple terms, Prabhupada mentions this in other places also in the Bhagavad Gita. When explaining Bhagavad Gita, he gives this example that a governor, when he visits a prison house, he comes in his original form. Inside the prison house, we see that the people have a particular dress, maybe white clothes, striped clothes, and they eat a certain type of food. They live a certain type of life. They may be shackled also in some cases. But if a governor visits the prison house, he comes in his original form. He may be wearing a suit and a tie and whatever is there. He comes, he meets with the people, he even may take food with them, and then he leaves. So he comes and leaves according to his own will. Now, it's a very good example. So in the material world, if a powerful entity can enter a restricted area under whose control things are happening, do different activities that he wants and wishes, perform them, and then live on his own will, why cannot the Supreme Lord, under whose control everything is happening, whether it is the spiritual world or the material world, can do these type of things? For the benefit of the people, he can come, he can mix with them, mingle with them, and fulfill the purpose for which he has come, which is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashaya Chatuskrita and Dharma Samstharpanathaya. So these three things he comes to fulfill, which is what the purpose, his purpose for coming. So he comes, he does these things, and then he leaves. So there's no difficulty in understanding that. If a powerful person like a governor can go inside a prison house without becoming a prisoner, go meet with the people there and move out, the Supreme Lord can definitely do that without any problem, without any issues. So in essence, that is what is being said here. Now, here, Prabhupada also mentions, according to Brahma Samhita, the Lord has many forms. It is stated, so Achyutam Anadi Rupam, he has Ananta Rupam. He has many forms. In the Brahma Samhita it is mentioned. It is stated herein that the Lord has innumerable forms, and when he appears within the vision of the living entity as Lord Krishna actually appeared, all such forms amalgamate with him. Besides all these infallible forms, he has his universal form. So when he comes in the material world, and this is a very interesting fact and very interesting to understand this, that the universal form is also, he assumes that form for the people to see him, for the people to look at him, etc. And when he lives behind the universal form, because the universal form is a material form. Sometimes Prabhupada says that it is a material form, sometimes he says that it is an illusory form, different ways, but basically saying that it is a form in the material world, assumed to show for non-devotees, or in general, rather than using the word non-devotees, there are different gradations of spiritual life or spiritual elevation. So there are living entities and people who are just like in a, for example, in a school, somebody is at the first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, high school, college, etc. So likewise, some living entities, some people are at a lower grade in their spiritual progress, and for them the universal form is manifested, and for them it is revealed that the Lord has this form where he has the sun and the moon are his eyes, and the clouds are his hairs. All these things are mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Different planets are in the different parts of the body. The hellish planets are at the lower level in his legs and feet, etc. So these are there to understand that the whole universe, the creation, is part of the Lord. There is nothing outside of him. There cannot be anything outside of the Supreme Lord. So when he comes, he is Satchit Ananda. He is transcendental. He has a transcendental form. He comes in his transcendental form with a covering of the universal form. And when he lives behind the universal form, and he lives in his transcendental form, in his original form. He comes in his original form, he lives in his original form. And all this is happening due to the time. And interestingly, there's in the first canto, chapter 9, Bhishma Dev is explaining the same thing. In that chapter, Yudhishthir Maharaj is feeling very morose, just like Arjuna was feeling before the battlefield. Why should I fight? And not wanting to fight because of so much. I mean, it was a world war where millions of people were going to be killed, and he knew that if the war happens, people will get killed. And is it really good? So he's taking a very responsible position. The same thing happened with Yudhishthir Maharaj after the battle. He was feeling very morose. He was feeling that because of me, because I wanted this kingdom, this war happened, and I am responsible for it. So nobody could pacify him. Again, this was Krishna's pastime. Krishna tried to explain to him and others, but nobody could. And then Krishna took him to Bhishma Dev, and Bhishma Dev explains it to him. So there are verses here. Text 14 in 1:9-14. He says, in my opinion, this is all due to inevitable time, under whose control everyone in every planet is carried, just as the clouds are carried by the wind. 15. Oh, how wonderful is the influence of inevitable time. It is irreversible. Otherwise, how can there be reverses in the presence of King Yudhishthira, the son of demigod controlling religion? Bhima, the great fighter with a club. The great bowman Arjuna with his mighty weapon Gandiva, and above all the Lord, the direct well-wisher of the Pandavas. So he's saying that how can there be anything inauspicious or bad happen in the presence of the Dharmaraj himself here, the great fighter Bhima with the Gada, Arjuna, the greatest administrator, and with his weapon Gandiva, and above all with Krishna himself, the well-wisher of the Pandavas. How can this happen? Then in the next verse, he says, O king, no one can know the plan of Lord Sri Krishna. Even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered. 17. O best among the descendants of Bharata or Yudhishthira, I maintain, therefore, that all this is within the plan of the Lord. Accepting the inconceivable plan of the Lord, you must follow it. You are now the appointed administrative head, and my Lord, you should now take care of those subjects who are now rendered helpless. So here, Bhishma Dev is very clearly explaining to Yudhishthira Maharaj that this is the will of the Lord, and only by his will things are happening. And coming back to today's verse 3:4:29, in the last part of the purport, Prabhupada says that Srila Prabhupada says that he came for a purpose and then he left, trying to look. The Lord appeared on the invitation of Brahma, who prayed before the Shirodaka Sai Vishnu, and therefore when the Lord appeared, all forms of Vishnu amalgamated with him, and when the mission was fulfilled, all of them disintegrated from him in the usual course. So it's like when a movie is about to begin, different characters that the director chooses, the different characters who are supposed to come in the movie or in a play. A play is a better example. And the play is going on, and there's some role play. They enact their activities, their acting, and when the play is finished, they all go and disintegrate, and then the curtains close. So same way here, Lord Brahma, and on the invitation of Lord Brahma, Krishna came, and when he came with all his associates. The plan, he performed the act, and then he left, and then the curtain closed, and with him all the characters also left with him. Characters meaning his associates. So that's how it happens. There is a purpose of the play. There is a purpose of his appearance, and when that purpose is done, in case of the play, there is also a purpose. There is a purpose to. It depends on the director of the play. The purpose could be to teach a particular lesson or to give some instructions in a play manner. Because if we give book instructions, it's hard to comprehend. But when the same thing are played in a play or in a movie, and if there is a lesson or some instruction, it is easier to comprehend. It is easier to practically see how the instructions can be applied. So similarly, Krishna comes, the pastimes are there, it is for our benefit. And when the reasons or the purpose is over, he leaves, and along with him, all his associates also leave. So all of this can be understood only by devotees, is what Srila Prabhupada mentions, and also backed by Jiva Goswami and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Because there are different grades of people, and for each of them, there is a different understanding. But the devotees can have the highest understanding because they are in a loving relationship with the Lord. They are practicing devotional service. Because they are practicing devotional service, Krishna grants them that favor to understand the true nature of things as they are. So I'll stop here. That is today's verse. And it's 7:58, couple of minutes left. And I'll open it up for discussions if there are any. Otherwise, we'll stop here. All right, so if there's no discussion, we'll stop here. Thank you very much for joining. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my obeisances. All good, Srila Prabhupada. It's very nice class. Thank you. I really liked the points that you had mentioned. One point in particular, which one was that? I just slipped my mind. It slipped my mind. But yeah, it was a very nice class. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your day. Hare Krishna.